So I went to the morgue this morning and opened the door to the room where they lay out the bodies and perform the autopsy. And there was music playing. Uh, I think it was like 80s music mostly on the doctor that was cutting his iPod. So death is the only remaining taboo, and it's the one thing that a secular, materialistic um, society cannot acknowledge in a conscious way, at least. I mean, we all have to go to funerals and we all lose people to death that we are close to. And we experience the trauma of that, the jolting shock of having there be a person there one minute and gone the next. Something which become and while someone is alive, they can be the bedrock of our lives. If you're in love with someone and um, they die, it's the foundation is ripped from beneath you, and somehow something which was there in nothing but a piece of flesh was enough to support you. And of course, you're just a piece of flesh too. So then you can start to rationalize it and say, yeah, we're all just flesh with emotions, and we get pleasure out of life. So we may as well chase those pleasures and thereby evolve. Self-interest, right? Self-interest is the motor and the engine of evolution. Evolution. But evolution has no purpose. Uh, does it? Nature has no purpose, and so that's what the, the problem we're trying to fathom is. I'm looking at this body laying on the table, and 24 hours ago, it was alive, and it was moving around and eating food and taking a piss and, you know, talking and thinking and feeling. It may have had dreams. If well, they probably both died before they went to bed, but the night before they were having dreams. What is that? And it's all occurring in this piece of pink jello with blood running through it, and some very low voltage electrical signals flying around in it. I mean, seemingly haphazardly, they just teach themselves how to organize a world and speak English and make music and paint and run governments and universities and pretend like they know something about the world. Like, we know more about the world than the flowers and the bees because we can make names for ourselves. I don't know. What is the difference? The flower doesn't build power plants and wage war. It just lays seeds, which the soil is happy to absorb, and the sun is happy to shine upon, and the clouds are happy to rain upon. And the flower grows. It doesn't need to fight anything to survive. It survives by cooperating. But so let's go through the day. The morning was the morgue, and that was an amazing experience. And then I got back to the office, and I got an email from my friend Joe, and it was about New Science magazine, I think, and they had done a special about death. Uh, what does it feel like to die, to drown, as opposed to be hung, as opposed to be electrocuted, and so on, opposed to falling off a building, from survivors that have survived these types of incidents, and they give their first person reports of how it felt. Drowning, they say, it really burns at first, but then within about 10 seconds, your brain just loses so much oxygen so quickly that it becomes kind of like going back into the amniotic fluid in the womb, and you sort of just go into the deepest sleep you've ever had, besides before you were born. If that makes sense. See, that's the thing about death. If death makes sense, then so does saying before you were born. Both, to say after I die and before I was born, they both have equal semantic weight. They're both metaphysical statements. And that seems to be the problem with consciousness. It's not here, right? It's not in my body. It does my body, but it can leave my body. You can have body without consciousness, but you can't have consciousness without body, which is why AI, artificial intelligence, computers that can think with codes, or is that what we mean by AI? If by AI we mean some kind of bioelectronic uh, organism bot thing with a synthesis of genetic organism and computer coded hardware, that could be there's no telling what that could be. But AI, in the sense of the linear processing of code, that doesn't seem possible to me. We can trick ourselves into thinking that this type of a computer right here, like this MacBook, is intelligent because I can type to it, or I can speak to it and it can recognize the English language and respond. That doesn't mean it's aware. And I was talking to the head doctor at the medical examiners, and I was telling him how I was not so much grossed out by the experience, but astonished by how surreal it was, because of this gap I was having in understanding the conscious living person and the dead, you know, body, stiff on a block, being sliced open, and having its insides taken out and its brain taken out. I mean, where did the person go? And did the person ever exist? And see, time is that connection to these metaphysical categories of life and death. Science doesn't have a definition for either one. The definition of death is no electrical activity in the brain. So, but no energy can be created or destroyed, right? So when the electrical energy in the brain ceases to exist here, well, it doesn't just disappear. Either it was never there to begin with, or it's everywhere at all times, and the person formerly alive, formerly an individual ego who thought that they were separate from their surroundings and thought that they were really going to die, and that they felt threatened by that, and that pain and suffering were actually happening to them instead of just happening. That becomes so obviously unnecessary and untrue after you die, or before you were born, or whatever the metaphysical, whatever eternity is. None of us can talk about it, but it's there all the time. there isn't just consciousness when the body is alive, and there isn't just consciousness in the body. Consciousness is the interaction of the body and the environment. But the environment is alive just as much as the body is alive. So my position on consciousness is that we can't assign it to any particular place because it exists throughout time and space. And I don't know what that means. It's a metaphysical statement.